Welcome to Good Finds, a podcast about finding good in the world and learning more about the work of Goodwill. I'm your host, Brent Watkins, Marketing Director at Goodwill of the Heartland, and today we're proud to announce that this is the first episode of our new podcast. Whether you're an avid thrifter, participant in one of our job training programs, or you work for Goodwill, we hope each episode will provide you with interesting and useful information. Now, future programs will include interviews with people from all aspects of our operation. For example, we'll be talking to our store team members who will share about the amazing things you'll find in our stores and how you can fashionably refresh your wardrobe for a fraction of the price of buying new. We'll talk to members of our team that work on our sustainability mission and what we do to recycle the things that can't be sold in our stores so that those items don't make it into area landfills. You'll hear from our employment specialists about how our programs help people get the training they need to find work and advance their careers. So to sum it up, we'll try to make this as entertaining and informative a podcast that'll make you glad you subscribe. Now, for this introductory episode, I thought the best way to kick things off would be to begin at, well, the beginning and talk about the history of Goodwill.
Our Goodwill Industries give work to the poor in an atmosphere of goodwill and after a careful study of their needs.
These were the words of Reverend Helms that he spoke nearly a century ago as he described the purpose of Goodwill. Now, much has changed since that time, but the essential work of our organization remains the same. At Goodwill of the Heartland, our mission is to help people reach their full potential through education, training, and the power of work. This mission continues the vision of our founder by recognizing many people face barriers to living full and independent lives. Whether it's a physical or emotional disability, homelessness, lack of education, or anything really that prevents someone from getting and keeping a job, Goodwill's commitment to help people find work remains the same. Now, many are surprised to learn that our organization began as a Methodist mission in 1902. Edgar J. Helms was a Methodist pastor with roots right here in Iowa, and while still a child, his family moved from his birthplace in New York to a farmstead near Nashua, Iowa. Later, he received his undergraduate degree in philosophy from Cornell College in Mount Vernon, Iowa, and moved to Massachusetts, where he received his Master of Divinity from Boston University School of Theology. It was in Boston that he was called to minister at Morgan Chapel in Boston's poverty-stricken South Side. There, he worked with marginalized individuals that traditional businesses were unwilling to hire. In 1902, he began by going door to door requesting local residents give him donations, and then he put local men and women to work repairing what he had collected. The refurbished shoes, clothing, and other household items were then sold to provide for the less fortunate. This model became Goodwill's first thrift stores, as described by Reverend Helms in an early radio interview.
Its customers, for the most part, buy in Goodwill stores because they cannot pay the prices prevailing in other stores. It exists for service and not for profit. Unlike ordinary business, it gives primary attention to the human. It takes the inefficient who are discarded by business and not wanted by the church.
120 years later, Goodwill still operates as a nonprofit, with every member organization functioning as a locally owned and operated social enterprise. Here at Goodwill of the Heartland, 88 cents of every dollar earned in our stores goes directly back to funding job training programs. Not only do our stores still offer an exceptionally affordable place to shop, but we partner with other area human service agencies to provide credit vouchers to those in need, so they can shop for clothing in our stores free of charge. Edgar J. Helms believed ending the cycle of poverty could be achieved through helping those in need become self-sufficient. Goodwill Industries International, as well as Goodwill member organizations, continue this belief in the power and dignity of work. So now that you have some sense of our history, I'd like to talk to you about what makes us unique at Goodwill of the Heartland. Now, people generally think of Goodwill as a single organization that runs thrift stores across the globe. And while we do have a national organization known as Goodwill Industries International, it doesn't actually own any thrift stores or directly provide any job training programs. It merely exists as a resource to member organizations. Each member organization, like Goodwill of the Heartland, is responsible for funding their job training programs. While all Goodwill members operate thrift stores, those stores can look and feel very different depending on what part of the country you're in. We have a saying that if you've seen one Goodwill store, you've seen, well, one Goodwill store. We're not like a Target or Walmart, where all the stores look and function basically the same. This local ownership's what makes us unique as an organization. Now, there's a lot of false information that has been circulated online for decades about Goodwill being owned by a greedy CEO that makes billions of dollars a year, and of course that simply isn't true. What Goodwill International is responsible for is defining the territory for each member organization. For example, we used to serve only Southeast Iowa, but then the opportunity came to expand into the Quad Cities and farther east into a small portion of central Illinois. We were formerly called Goodwill Industries of Southeast Iowa, but changed our name to Goodwill of the Heartland once our territory expanded into Illinois. And here's another bit of trivia about our history at Goodwill of the Heartland. Did you know that in the 1980s through the 1990s, we used to fund our mission by sorting and processing bottles and cans? We did. At the time, we only had a few thrift stores, and most of our income was from the sorting operation. It's an example of how each Goodwill member organization has the freedom to find their own way of generating revenue to pay for their job training programs. And speaking of how we raise funds for our job training programs, Goodwill also partners with the federal government through the Ability One program. Now, the Ability One program is a federal initiative that purchases products and services from community-based nonprofit agencies like Goodwill. Through the Ability One program, we're dedicated to training and employing individuals who are blind or have significant disabilities. Our Goodwill has established a special entity specifically for these contract services called Heartland Goodwill Enterprises. Through this organization, we have two kinds of Ability One programs with the federal government. First, we have our contracts to provide janitorial services to federal facilities like the Herbert Hoover Presidential Library and federal courthouses in Davenport and Des Moines. Second is our vegetable oil packaging facility in Coralville. And this plant packages vegetable oil for the USDA's USAID Food Assistance Program and hopes to employ up to 40 people with disabilities. So now you should have a better picture of all that goes on in Goodwill. Now keep listening. We hope to produce a new podcast once a month that'll be packed with useful information about what's trending in our stores, thrifting tips, and more information about our programs and services. Be sure to subscribe to the Good Finds podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And for more information about Goodwill of the Heartland, or to contact us with your questions or comments on our podcast, visit our website at goodwillheartland.org. That's goodwillheartland.org. And remember, all the good finds are at Goodwill.